It's Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods.
.06 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It is a Monday, and I'm glad you made it. Is that right?
Show is sponsored by Dissolving Underwear. Because who wants to wear wet undies anyway?
I just don't wear any. Let's see, but I'm glad you made it. That's what I say on Friday. Oh, yeah. Yes. Rinse and repeat. Sorry.
Warning, this show contains reference to guns, liberty, limited government, low taxation, the cult of climate change, free thinking, cigar smoking, short people, rubber chickens, Karen's bureaucracy, liberal buzzwords, tour runs, traffic, toilets, terrible jokes, and more. No apologies will be issued. Guest callers may express any opinion they want without fear of being canceled. Unless you're a loudmouth jerk like Dave, then Glenn will hang up on you. Strap in, hold on to your coffee, and feel free to participate.
This disclaimer does not refer to every person named Dave, just one particular Dave from San Francisco. We know a lot of Daves. They call this show all the time, and they're great people. So don't call this program and complain that we use your name. That would be a real Dave move, Dave. I had a really busy weekend. I'm hoping that you did too. And good busy. I mean, really good busy and really interesting busy. So let me tell you about what happened to me when I got to Sunday. Drove up with some friends to the Bighorn Mountains. Met another friend up there. Call her Ranger Jessica. She's a BLM ranger up in that area. She took us on sort of a tour. Part of the reason was fall leaves up in the area. But the other story is there is a fire that's up in the Bighorn Mountains now. This is just north of Sheridan. In fact, it's like two fires, and it looks like they've combined from where I'm sitting anyway. And, Jim, if you're listening, you should see the TFR that is over top of that area right now. Is huge. And, of course, there's firefighters up there, firefighter airplanes, and they're all over Wyoming, especially if you go to the YouTube page, Wyoming Through the Lens. There's all sorts of pictures and videos from that area and the fires. There's one guy, and I put this on a post that's up on the Wake Up Wyoming page right now. Tom Doolin, not Tom Dooley, different guy, song written about him, Tom Doolin, and he was outside, he was east of the Bighorns, shooting video of this fire. The smoke is massive. I'll get to the smoke in just a bit. He zooms in, and you can see an incredible fire. The flames shooting higher than I've seen flames shoot in a long time. So it is quite a video that he has, and that's up on the Wake Up Wyoming page, along with some other information I have on that and a few other fires. That took off over the weekend. So while standing there, we were in the Bighorn Mountains around the Highway 16 area above Buffalo, and we're at a spot where we're looking at where you can see the smoke coming out of where Sheridan is. And it's so big. I mean, huge amounts of smoke. And I'm noticing that it's turning white. And Jessica reminds me, I thought about this, but I hadn't thought about this in a long time. When you get that much heat, that much uplift, it can actually create its own weather. And in some cases, even make another thunderstorm. Now, by making another thunderstorm, that doesn't necessarily mean rain. It's not like it's going to create rain and put itself out. But it will create a thunderstorm. We'll get lightning out of that, which can create more fires. So that's what's happening just above Sheridan in the Bighorn Mountains right now. That sucker is huge and smoky. Was not helped yesterday. The winds picked up because, as you know, some cool air moved into the area, a bit of a cool front, drops our temperatures. But that was windy, and we had 40-mile-an-hour plus winds blowing on that sucker, which doesn't help the firefighters at all. Talk about fanning the flames, that'll do it, right? Especially with something that big. So all of the winds and all of the dry that they had up there and all of the timber just waiting to go. And there you have this massive fire just north of Sheridan, Wyoming. And the smoke went. So when we left, we drove up through Casper toward up to KC, heading toward the Bighorns. And while we're up there most of the way driving up, it was a beautiful morning. We're enjoying the view, especially when we got to the base of the Bighorns. But then we started to see, as we're winding around the highway, wow, look at that smoke. We could see the smoke in the air. And as we got closer to Buffalo, we could see what was going on up in Sheridan. And again, just wow, the amount of smoke coming out of there. And it's not the kind, in the early morning, it sort of spread and settled high in the air. In the afternoon, it was gathering in thick plumes and again, turning white as it's working on essentially creating its own storm up there. There's a story that I have on the Wake Up Wyoming site for you, including how that works. Now, a couple of other fires I wanted to touch on real quick. Here's Avocado and Laramie. Morning, Glenn. I hope your Florida family is doing all right. Oh, okay. Thanks for that. My Florida family is more inland. People ask me often about that, and I do appreciate it. Let me get back to that in just a moment. I'll finish with the fire first, because that has to do with the hurricane. So there's two fires that are burning up there in the Bighorns, the Elk incident and the PK Lane incident. And those two fires, the Elk incident has already burned over 3,000 acres. The PK fire incident, those are the ones up in the Bighorns. Head over to the town of Du Bois, and there's a fire there that is currently has grown by 3,000 feet. Total acreage burned, estimated at about close to 12,000 acres so far. And there's lots of pictures and video of that one as well. And the Fish Creek fire. Boy, it's back and forth. Let me check as long as I'm talking to you about this. I'm going to go back to where I take a look at YDOT road information, because a couple of times this year, the Fish Creek fire, which is Togety Pass, has closed down the highway in that area. And it's gotten big enough. Nope, it's all open right now. Okay. Because that had gotten big enough in the past that it had closed down because of that. Now, there is another road. If I'm going to go east of Buffalo right now, let's see, eastbound Western Buffalo, Johnson County line. Okay. There's just some warnings on the highway there that dry and strong winds. And the same around the Newcastle area, well, in south of Sundance and north of Newcastle. Okay, dry and heavy winds is what they have right now in those areas on YDOT. I was seeing if they had closed down any roads because of these fires. Not at this time, but I'll keep an eye on that for you. Now, for Avocado, who's in Laramie, asking about my family. So the hurricane that moved up the coast, I was wondering if it would ever get to a Category 4, because at first they said it was going to be a 2, then they said 4, then they backtracked to 3 again. When it finally hit land, it was a 4. Now, when it came up the coast of Florida, it was high tides and a big hurricane. So while it was not a direct hit on the coastline from where my family is down by Sanibel and Captiva Islands around Fort Myers, Florida, just above the Everglades, all the way up to the Big Bend area. That was not a direct hit, but it was sort of scraping up the coast, and that was really heavy rain and a big hurricane tidal surge during high tide. So when you look at all of the flooding that goes all the way up the west coast of Florida, there's why. There's a big hurricane out there, and it's during high tide. So, yeah, a lot of flooding happened in that area, and they're still cleaning up that mess. Now, if you remember one of the things I was saying to you, the big knockout punch for a hurricane, the upper right-hand side of the storm, you don't want to get hit by that. That's the hardest blow as everything whips around and hits. Thankfully, that hit right in the corner of the Big Bend area where it's mostly marshland and was absorbed. But as it continued on north, there was so much water in that storm, such heavy rains, up through Georgia, even to Asheville, North Carolina. And they're still running things on the news right now. The amount of rain that came down in the Smoky Mountains, in the Appalachian Mountains, up through even parts of Tennessee, and even down in Georgia, places like that, was an enormous amount of rain. And so a lot of people suffered some serious flooding because of that. Now, my family, as Avocado's asking about, even though we grew up on Sanibel and Captiva, my sister moved, picture where Orlando is, that's about the center of the state, right? Come just down south a little bit. And there's this beautiful little town called Lake Wales. And it's sort of below Orlando in the center of the state. So all my sister had to put up with was a lot of heavy winds during the storm. Her town was not damaged at all. If she was still living over on the West Coast, well, you can imagine. 616, Wake Up Wyoming.
Woke Radio, WOKE, where we're 100%.
So many opinions, we had to build the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app to hold them all. Free download from AM 1030 K2 Radio.
6:23 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. So first off, Miss Mary just got from Tim, who came up with me, drove up with me to the Bighorns. A couple of pictures that we're going to add to the story about the big fire and the Bighorns. We were many miles. We were around Buffalo area, out on the ridge, taking pictures of the fire that was all the way up in Sheridan. And the size of the smoke coming out of there, you would just not believe. I.D. John, Granite Canyon, morning. He says, "Morning, Glenn. My favorite conspiracy theory. The feds made the storm worse to influence the election." Now, that goes back. You're thinking way back. Hurricane that hit New Orleans, Katrina. And the theory by some liberals at the time, they actually put this out there, that Bush steered the storm to New Orleans. He did it to try to win the election. I don't know how that wins him in the election, but they actually came out. Some people actually came out with that conspiracy theory. He's steering the hurricanes. How powerful was George W. Bush that he can steer a hurricane? And if we can steer hurricanes, why don't we just steer them away from us? Unless you got some government conspiracy on that. See, Jim in Casper. Morning, Jimmy says, pass that on if you want some ag report. Oh, yes, I will pass that on. That's a problem now and then when we get some old ones that repeat and something needs to be reset, and I don't know. But I'll go ahead and pass that on. It was an old ag report, apparently, and apologize for that. All right, so talking about a couple of things here. First off, the hurricane that went up the coast of Florida and then continued on up and did a lot of damage, but also a lot of the smoke and fires that we have here in the Wyoming area right now. And both these situations have been really interesting. Meantime, we're in a bit of a dry spell out in his part of the country. Now, you would think that all we have to do is adjust the CO2 level and it fixes everything. But it has nothing to do with that. It has to do, I was watching Don Day's weather forecast this morning, where high-pressure systems and low-pressure systems park themselves, which has nothing to do with the CO2 level, so we're good there. Now, in the meantime, on that note, so I was, every time I have to head down, let's say, to Cheyenne, which I'm doing on a weekly basis, I'm between Casper and Cheyenne, and the two radio stations, out of the stations that carry this program, so K2 Radio in Casper and KGAB in Cheyenne, and they're having me kind of going back and forth between the stations. So at one point in the week, I'm in Casper. The other point in the week, I'm in Cheyenne, broadcasting from those two stations. So as I'm heading down, I keep noticing I'm seeing heading north on I-25 are these big wind turbine blades. And there's been a lot of them. And as I drove up north of Casper on Sunday, I found out where they're going. So if you're heading north from Casper, before you get to KC, you'll see some massive blades. I mean, these are some of the biggest wind turbines I have ever seen. And there's quite a few towers without blades yet that are still waiting to go up. So that'll get started at some point. But I've never seen such big blades in my entire life. And I suppose I know they've been out there, but I haven't seen them personally. So I thought about this as I was looking at those blades. I thought about an article that I pulled up for you. Overall subsidies for wind and solar are rising in the UK and here in the United States. They're just pumping more and more money into this. And the story goes into a lot of detail by how much money that they continue just to dump into subsidizing wind turbines, as if your government is supposed to be producing energy for you. And it's not. It's supposed to be a private sector thing. All right. But remember, at some point, the government runs out of money. Well, they already have, really, technically. They ran out of money a long time ago. When they do finally get to the point where they can't continue to borrow and print like they've been doing, when that happens, the subsidies run out on these wind turbines and they run into serious problems. Because right now, the majority of them, most of them, are only making profit on subsidies. So as I'm driving up with friends going toward the Bighorns yesterday and we see this new wind farm being built, their comment was, geez, what an eyesore. I mean, it's one thing if you look out across the plains and you see one or two wind turbines out there. But you people who are looking in your Cheyenne and you're looking to the west, I mean, after a while they fill it in Medicine Bow area with so many, man, that becomes an eyesore after a while. And we've already talked about the reliability and sustainability of them, and they don't have any. But now I know where those big wind turbines play. And those things are supposed to be there to prevent the kinds of things like the forest fires and prairie fires that we've been having. Well, that's not going to work. Coming up on some local business that we have to take care of, we're going to roll into news time after that. Oh, Miss Mary, already have a note out to IT about the ag report. Thank you. Appreciate that, Miss Mary. Coming up on some local business and news time. Wake Up Wyoming.
Take Glenn anywhere with the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on AM 1030 K2 Radio.
8:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. So, let's say Jim Casper is sending me a note. Say, Glenn, you are so incorrect. Well, he usually thinks so, but okay. What I was saying was, as I was driving up toward the Bighorns yesterday, you have fall color photos, but also we're looking at the big fire that's north of Sheridan up there and got some pictures and video and things like that we'll be sharing you over the next couple of days. And that's a major event. Also, those people in Du Bois and over Tokenie Pass area still having problems out there. We'll keep reporting to you on that. But now, the wind turbines, you get still south of KC. You know, in other words, say around the Midwest area, in that area. Okay. There's these huge wind turbines going in, massive blades, and there's a lot of them being put in. So my argument was, at some point, the subsidies ran out. So what Jim is saying, they will cut off funding to Social Security, veterans, military, and citizens, but will continue to fund woke policies, other countries, and their crony friends. Come on, man. And he's not wrong. What you're talking about, though, Jim, is the order of which things fall apart. Because let's take a look at, to show you where we are on this here. I'm going to go with debt clock. Okay, so calling up, I haven't looked at it in a couple of months here. Where are we at? Okay, so we're about $35.5 trillion, but when we add in everything else, unfunded liabilities, et cetera, we're almost at $220 trillion. And remember, I've said to you before, we have to borrow money to pay the interest on this. Think about that. We're borrowing money to pay the interest on this. There's no way we can keep doing this. It's not possible. Now, there's some economic illiterate people, including members of the Obama administration and the Biden administration, and many Republicans too, by the way, who think that we can just keep printing money. Well, they don't know history. They don't know what happens when you do that. So at some point, this collapses, and that's not an if or a might or a maybe. It's going to. So when we take a look at wind and solar power, just to name two things, the reason that it exists is heavy subsidies. It's supposed to be a free market deal, but it's not. And when those subsidies run out, and they will, the government will no longer be able to borrow money or just print new money. At some point, that comes to an end. It does happen. Like I said, it's not an if or a might or a maybe. It does happen. When that happens, things start to fall apart. Now, Jim, you're not wrong. They will end up cutting off. It's the order of which things start collapsing. Social Security, veterans, military, et cetera, et cetera. Woke policies come last. Eventually, though, that has to happen. So when it comes to, unless we get a new kind of government installed, which is possible, we can do this, then what happens is all of this, the wind turbines and the solar panels, which are popping up all over Wyoming and covering the landscape, at some point they run out of their subsidized funding. And when that does, when it does happen, then what? Well, we got to start taking them down, right? Now, they're supposed to have set up, and I hope they have, every time you see one of these projects go up, they're supposed to put money in escrow somewhere. So if they're not working anymore, they can be dismantled. The money's already set aside to take care of it. That's what's supposed to happen. They make oil companies do that, and natural gas companies do the same thing. You want to put up an oil well, a natural gas well? Fine, you have to have money set aside in case you guys go bankrupt. That way we can go ahead and take that down so we don't have some orphan well sitting out there, which I think is actually a good policy, because we've had a problem in the past with orphan wells and orphan mines because the company went out of business and they just left all their junk laying around. So now here's money to go clean it up. That's a good idea, and wind and solar has to do the same thing. So theoretically, all of this at some point comes to a stop, a standstill. Now, there may be a few wind and solar places around the country, maybe even a couple in Wyoming, that are actually profitable. So far, most are not. Now, you are constantly lied to by being told that these things produce energy at such an extremely cost-effective rate. Really? Then why are they relying on subsidies to survive? And why do they have to rely? Well, it's to build them, but also to continue operating them. They have to survive on subsidies. Why do our electric rates keep going up? This is supposed to reduce our electricity rates, but it's not. It's increasing our electricity rates. Your rates are not going down. Our electric company keeps coming to us and going to the state of Wyoming and asking for big rate increases, huge rate increases. And part of the reason why, not the only reason, but part of the reason why is, well, we're putting all of this wind and solar in. Wasn't that supposed to reduce the costs? But prices keep going up. And the same thing happens, let's go to Europe. Same thing has happened there. Electricity is outrageously expensive there. You think it's bad here. Electricity is outrageously expensive there. The more wind and solar they try to go to, the more the prices go up. So everything you've been told is a lie up to this point. 6:42 is the time. Wake up.
Download the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. Listen anywhere and chat live with Glenn during the show on AM 1030 K2 Radio.
6:48 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Off we go to the icebox to talk to Frank Gambino. Okay, Frank, I just let me have it. How'd they do?
They won.
Wait a second. No, it's not so much that that UW won. That's not the part that astounds me. You were right.
Well, no, they could not play any worse.
Okay.
So they were due
Yes.
to beat somebody, and
Okay.
Air Force wasn't any good either.
Right.
So this was the team they could beat.
Okay.
And they did.
And-
Guess what? All the alumni were happy.
Oh my God! It was homecoming.
You know, they had a good weekend,
It
and
was all
now
these-
there's some hope for the rest of the
Okay.
season.
Well, not really, but they won that one anyway, and it was homecoming, and people were walking around the parking lot afterwards going, Frank Gambino was right?
No, and they were like, "Wow, I
Yes,
can't believe we actually watched these guys win. They actually,
Yes.
for at least
That
a half,
bad.
they look like a real team."
Oh, wow. Okay, so let's pick this apart then. So they actually came out looking like a team.
No,
No, they finished looking like a team.
yes,
Okay. Okay.
everything is progress.
It's
everything
fine.
is,
So at some point, probably the coach turned to them after halftime, during halftime, and said, "You really got to pull this together because you suck."
well, or it'd be like, guys, WTF?
Yeah.
Enough of this.
Yes.
We need to play better.
Yes.
Why aren't we playing better? Why aren't we coaching better?
Yes. Right.
I mean,
Okay.
who knows? But you know what? All is well in Cowboy Nation today.
Well, today anyway, but
Or
then we
over the
got
weekend.
When's the next game?
Not until 2 weeks. They have
Okay.
this week off.
So they have 2 weeks to figure out what they did right in the second half
And build on it.
and build on that. Yeah. Okay.
I'm hip to that. Totally.
Not bad. Did anyone look? Was it a team effort, or did somebody look good? Or
Well, the quarterback played better. Swoboda played
okay.
better. The offensive line played better.
Okay.
They had guys that, just either they had to play better or play to their God-given ability, and that's what they weren't doing for a month.
Okay.
But wonders never cease, Glenn.
Okay. Now, later on this morning, I do have some amazing tailgating statistics for you.
Oh,
You're going to love that.
I love tailgating. All right, in college football, the Wyoming Cowboys did put a notch in the left column. They outlasted Air Force 31-19 on Saturday night in Laramie. On offense, the Pokes looked dreary in the first half and trailed 13-7, but put it together in the second half with a couple of rushing touchdowns from quarterback Evan Swoboda. And after 4 iffy games, he played much, much better. And throwing the ball, he was 15 of 21 for 165 yards with no interceptions. UW finally displayed an effective running game, so the Air Force was getting blocked up front. Sam Scott ran for 97 yards and a touchdown. The Cowboy defense allowed just 6 points in the second half, and it certainly helped that the offense was on the field a lot in the second half. So the Pokes are 1-4 overall, 1-0 in Mountain West play. Air Force drops to 1-3 overall, 0-1 in league play. Cowboys have this week off. They'll take on San Diego State on the 12th of October. High school football from Friday, first and 4A. Number 1 Sheridan drilled number 5 Kelly Walls 56-0. Second rate at Campbell County all over Laramie 40-17. Third rate is Cheyenne East number 4 Natrona 14-13. Rock Springs improved to 3-2. They hammered Woodland Cheyenne South 58-0, and Thunder Basin won their first game of the year, beating Cheyenne Central 22-0. In 2A, Glenrock lost big to Wheatland 40-0. Burns lost big to Bighorn 49-7. In 1A 6-man, Riverside over KC 36-20, and Casper Christian lost to Encampment 82-33. In the NFL from yesterday, the Denver Broncos are 2-2 with a 10-9 pillow fight win over the New York Jets on the road in the rain. The Bronco offense was just plain bad, especially in the first half, but quarterback Bo Nix threw his first career NFL touchdown pass. Too bad Nix was minus 7 yards passing in the first half and threw for a grand total of 60 yards on 12 of 25 passing. It was raining, so that was a challenge. But the Bronco defense sacked Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers 5 times. Yet, New York could have gone ahead late in the game but missed a 50-yard field goal. Broncos will host the Las Vegas Raiders this week. High school tennis, the season wrapped up on Saturday in Gillette. Cheyenne Central won both the boys and girls team titles. Paula Melizzo of Laramie won the boys' number 1 singles championship, and he finished second a year ago. And Haley Mathis-Breitkoff of Cheyenne Central won the number 1 girls singles championship. That's it in sports.
Now, is it maybe just your reporting? I'm not sure. I keep hearing about a lot of bad teams this year.
Yeah, they're bad.
Okay. I'm not talking one team. I mean, just in general, across sports, there seems to be just a lot of bad teams.
Well, you know what? And sometimes good teams just play bad. Here's the Buffalo Bills yesterday with Josh Allen.
Yeah.
They got drilled.
Wow. Okay.
Badly beaten.
Just did not show up with their A game, huh?
No, and Baltimore did, and that's what happens. Even Josh Allen said, players from both teams, no, we didn't win the Super Bowl today.
Yeah.
So there's a ladder of progression, and you got to keep going up.
We all have good days and bad days. Everybody does.
Yes.
I think the difference, though, is when everybody's watching and you have a bad day.
Right. Or you have more bad days
than good days.
Yeah,
that's okay. Coming up on some local news and weather forecast, it's Wake Up Wyoming.
I'm so happy to be here. Yeah. I'm just happy to be here. Still, I know the world's on fire, the situation's dire. A lot of work and courage gonna be required, but
Day and drop.
.06 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. I'll get back to some more coverage of some of the big fires, including the one north of Sheridan, up there in the Bighorn Mountains, which just huge yesterday. Also in Du Bois and a couple of other areas. Most of those big fires deal with timber. right now. We'll get into that. Hang on, it's Monday, rinse and repeat.
Today's show is sponsored by Dissolving Underwear. Because who wants to wear wet undies anyway?
I understand. I just chose after a while not to wear any at all. Just depends on how you want to play it. No pun on the depends part.
Warning, this show contains reference to guns, liberty, limited government, low taxation, the cult of climate change, free thinking, cigar smoking, short people, rubber chickens, Karen's bureaucracy, liberal buzzwords, tour runs, traffic, toilets, terrible jokes, and more. No apologies will be issued. Guest callers may express any opinion they want without fear of being canceled. Unless you're a loudmouth jerk like Dave, then Glenn will hang up on you. Strap in, hold on to your coffee, and feel free to participate.
This disclaimer does not refer to every person named Dave, just one particular Dave from San Francisco. We know a lot of Daves. They call this show all the time, and they're great people. So don't call this program and complain that we use your name. That would be a real Dave move, Dave. So one of the reasons I bring up the cult of climate change as often as I do is because it really has everything to do with what our businesses are here in Wyoming. It's not just coal, gas, and oil, but ranching as well. Not just cattle, even you sheep herders out there. Well, I mean, it's carbon and methane emissions. You really have to worry. Okay, well, here's the latest. They're at it again. Hang on. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to picture yourself being young and full of energy. Yeah, remember those days? And you're in a nightclub. The music is loud. Big screen TVs above your head as you all dance to big pictures of Greta Thunberg looking down angry at you. How dare you, she sings. Because you are destroying the planet, don't you know? Well, of course you are. I'm sure that if you just stopped doing it, everything would be okay. I don't know how this is supposed to work. Oh, by the way, side note, I was watching a story. There are places where they're trying to grow more trees, more grass, just areas that, for whatever reason, nature could use a little bit of a help getting seeds out there to grow whatever kind of vegetation. And they showed airplanes flying over and helicopters flying over. And they're not just dropping seeds. There are seeds inside a little ball, and the ball is about as big as picture a ball shot from a rifle, that kind of big. Yeah, from back in the days of the old ball shot rifles. And that ball is made out of coal, charcoal. Yeah. And they do that. I know, charcoal, for a couple of reasons. Fertilization, important carbon is in there to help the plant grow. Okay, so that's part of what they're doing. Climate activists are at it again. The cult of climate change, once again, they went up, started to throw, and this time I'm personally offended. Van Gogh is one of my favorite artists, and they're throwing soup once again at his paintings. Now, first off, it's not really going to work because the paintings are protected behind glass and so on. So if they're throwing soup at it, or even if they try throwing paint, whatever the case is, it's not going to do anything. But here's the story real quick. Climate activists, again, threw soup at Vincent van Gogh's Sunflowers. Beautiful painting. And they did it again, London, Friday, September 27th. 3 protesters would just stop oil tossed tomato soup over sunflowers, which was painted, by the way, in 1889. It happened an hour after 2 others were sentenced to prison for doing basically the same thing. So these people are getting some prison time, about 2 hours worth of prison time. 2 hours, 2 years worth of prison time for doing something like this. Now, believe it or not, I would like these people. I know that you hate them as much as I do. They throw the soup at the painting, which, again, never touches the painting. It's protected under glass and so on, so we're okay there. And then they, a lot of times, will glue themselves to the wall, which I'm in favor of just leaving them there. Let them keep doing this. I know you might be surprised at me saying this, but let them keep doing this. The reason why is the more people that they get angry, the more they lose people for their cause. And it really is getting to the point where folks have just about had enough. They're just fed up. I also pointed out last week when it came to modern art, if this is one of those modern art paintings where they just splash paint or soup all over what is splashed paint in the first place, how could you tell that they did damage to it? They actually have to take real art, like a Van Gogh, so you can tell that they actually did or tried to do some damage to it. But I still come back to and let them keep doing what they're doing, because they're just, people have had enough. Even folks that would normally support them. So I want the radicals to be as radical as they could possibly be. All right, off to the phones we go. 888-97 Woods, the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. Off to Mills, Wyoming we go. Hey, Jude.
Hey, over the weekend I was watching television, right? In between doing laundry and stuff. And an ad came on, and it was for Amendment A for Wyoming and property tax.
Right.
And it's SJR3 is what it's going to go through. It creates 4 classes of property, separated. Okay, occupied residents versus non-occupied residents. You're going to be taxed differently. So if you got a second home, you're going to be taxed as though it was a commercial property on your second home. This whole thing is stupid. Okay, the primary residence. So does that mean that Dana lives in one of our houses and then I go live in the other, so that I'm not paying commercial tax on a little one-bedroom house out in the middle of nowhere? Okay, you've got the assessment rate at 9.5 for agricultural. Who came up with that number? That's quite a bit. That's 10% on your property. If you're, a farmer or a rancher, that's way too much. Residential property, 11.5 for industrial, and dig this, 100% for mineral. Okay, that is just outrageous. Okay, now I looked at they use the word schools. It's for the schools. Well, I happen to attend the meet and greet with Houston and Hall and Redding and Beaver this weekend, and they were talking about the same thing. How much we're given to pay for our kids' education, and they're still stupid. Okay, so throwing more money at it ain't going to fix it. We've got to have better teachers and a better curriculum. Secondly, what about they're saying that in Kansas and Nebraska, this is a transparency deal. What I want to see done, I want to see if you're 65 or older and you've owned your home for, over 20 years, you should be done with taxes. I mean, you don't have any kids in school anymore and you're living on a fixed income. And I haven't found in this thing where it says it expires in a certain way. To me, they ought to dump the levies and bring them back down. The Trona County takes 12 mil levies. And with Sweeney's new, let's say for the senior citizens home, that's going to make it a 13 mil levy in reality. And then you've got the city wanting their 5 cents, and it makes it a 14. They're taxing us right out of our homes, right off of our properties, and now they want to screw with 4 different classes of taxes.
Here's the thing. As soon as you said 4 different classes of taxes, what I thought of was you've got to make things much simpler, not more difficult. One of the problems we have with the current tax code is there's even people, we've talked about this before, who it's their job to go assess your taxes. They're the ones who show up on your property and assess your taxes. And even they don't quite understand exactly how everything in the system is supposed to work. It's kind of confusing, complicated as it is. So let's try to fix the system by making it more complicated? No. Find the simplest solution.
That's what they want you to vote. So
Okay, got to be careful there. I'm going to let you go, Jude. I'm going to go on to some commercials and news and information break. Now and then, Judy makes me hit the dump button. If you're listening on the Wake Up Wyoming app, you caught it because it doesn't dump that. But if you're listening on radio stations, I'm sorry, you missed what she said.
Start your day the right way. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods on K2 Radio. Join the conversation at 888-97-WOODS.
7:22 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. So Paul is saying, thanks for leaving your audience hanging. That's regarding Judy. Judy every now and then gets passionate, and she'll cuss on the air. Now, if you're wondering what she said, just picture massive steaming piles of male bovine juice. Okay, that's yeah. That's basically, you know what she said then, right? Okay. And I'm proud to tell people that we have a 10-second delay button. You're hearing my voice 10 seconds after I spoke these words. And that's in case somebody cusses, I can go ahead and slam this button that's next to me, and that 10 seconds just disappears. And suddenly you're hearing me in real time. And then the 10 seconds builds back up again. That's the delay button. My proudest moment using that, I've only ever had to use it because now and then someone gets passionate and they cuss. And my hand swings over and slaps that button and dumps what the caller said. So at one point, President Trump had called into this program. That's back when he was appearing in Wyoming at the Casper, Wyoming Ford Center. And he got kind of passionate and cussed on the air. And I slapped the button and then realized after I had slapped the button, I just hit the dump button on a president. Wonder in the history of radio how many people have ever had to do that. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I'm the only one, unless somebody can show me otherwise. So there's a gift that Trump gave to me that nobody else will ever have. So proud of that moment, really. Real quick, did want to cover what Judy was talking about because we do have a property tax problem in Wyoming. We're not the only state, but we do. And we've been trying to solve it. And her complaint was a new property tax proposal came up that would categorize different properties in different categories. They sort of are now, but a little bit more. And we can go into all the details of this, but look at it this way. I wrote a book called The Uncomplicated Life, and it talks about simplifying things and how I don't even trust things that are not simplified. Sometimes things are not simplified intentionally to confuse you. Sometimes things are not simplified just out of, well, people think that making something more complex will solve a complex problem, and it just makes it worse. Either way, whatever the reason why, the answer to our federal tax, income tax woes, and our Wyoming property tax woes are not to make the system more complicated. It's to uncomplicate it. That's why one of the suggestions, and we do need to look into it a little bit more as to how to do it. One of the suggestions is it's like a sales tax for the state of Wyoming. And it's not on everything, and most of that sales tax would actually affect people visiting Wyoming, although you would end up as a resident paying some too. But overall, it would just eliminate your property tax. It's a good idea. It should be looked into. And talk about complicated. You would never have to fill out anything regarding or go by an assessment of any of your properties ever again. Talk about simple. It's a great idea. It was proposed last legislative session, but didn't make it very far. It does have a few problems in it, but I think it should be revisited. Let me see. Kevin's in Wheatland. Just FYI, when en route to a very large wildfire near Dreier in Platte County, several homes are threatened. Visibility on US 26 between I-25 and Guernsey may be bad. Okay. Thank you, Kevin. I'm going to read that again, nice and slow. So Kevin from Wheatland says, just an FYI, we're en route to a very large wildfire near Dreier in Platte County. Several homes are threatened. Visibility on US 26 between I-25 and Guernsey may be bad. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and take a look. I was up near the Bighorns in Buffalo, up in the Bighorns yesterday. And there is a story up on the Wake Up Wyoming site that was up, I just put up this morning. The pictures were taken about the fire that's just north of Sheridan. And up in the Bighorns, we could see the smoke just rolling out at massive amounts to the point that it actually does create its own weather. So much smoke was coming out of the Bighorn's just above Sheridan yesterday because of that. And there's other fires out there right now. Let me see where you're talking about. Okay, so Guernsey area. Okay, that one on my fire map that Kevin's talking about does not appear on my fire map yet, although I'm sure that they will have that because he said, see, visibility US 26 between I-25 and Guernsey is pretty bad right about now. Okay, see, I'm kind of looking at where that would be. And again, I don't have anything down there now, but I'm sure they'll go ahead and post it on the smoke and fire map. And if we get anything, I'll go ahead and let people know. Some of the bigger fires that are out there right now, since I was talking about that earlier this morning, we do have to worry about what's happening in Du Bois. Some fires in there up in the mountains really got out of hand. And I'm waiting to see if anything happens with the Fish Creek fire again, because while they've been working that one hard, remember that's the one that closed Togety Pass a couple of times, and I'm going to go check for an update on Togety Pass to see if anything. WYDOT does put out warnings. If you use the same map you would use in the wintertime to look for snow conditions to see if anything closed, look for smoke and fire conditions. And so far, nothing is closed out there. So, okay, everything's open right now, and most of the smoke is high, except where Kevin is saying, Platte County on US 26 between I-25 and Guernsey in that area. Just watch out for smoke in that area. We'll keep you posted as the morning goes on. And to everybody just north of Sheridan, we're watching you. Those in Du Bois, too, watching you guys as well. You're fighting some pretty big ones out there. These mostly, except for the one Kevin's talking about, mostly these are timber fires that are up in the mountains. And that's why those flames are so high and the smoke is so thick. Coming up on some local business that we have to take care of. News time right after news. Update on your weather forecast. You and I get back into it. 888-97 Woods, the phone number. That's 888-97 WOODS. It's Wake Up Wyoming.
Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods. Make your voice heard at 888-97 Woods. This is AM 1030 K2 Radio.
Yeah, it's all Miss Mary's fault. 7:37 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. All right, 888-97 Woods, the phone number. That's 888-97 WOODS. And let's see. I was talking with Miss Mary back there, and we got into this conversation. And now she's apologizing as if being a little bit late to get back on the mic was her fault. Actually, I'm the one responsible. It's my fault, but don't tell her I said that. Because she wants to take the blame for it. I will absolutely let her. Not a problem. Chet Yoder says, you drive I-25 a lot? I do. You know where Highway 26 merges with it west of Guernsey, right? Dryer's a couple miles east of it. Yes, Okay, so apparently that has a lot of smoke and fire in that area. So just be careful of that. So real quick, this is just something on the side that I thought was an interesting story from Cowboy State Daily. Is the Wyoming bison flag facing the wrong way? The granddaughter's creator says yes. Vienna Keys, I think is how you pronounce it, designed Wyoming state flag with its iconic bison emblazoned with the date and seal and so on. She knows across the Cowboy State. She's known as Wyoming's Betsy Ross. Privately, however, the nickname was something that irked the artist just a little bit. She was a designer, not a seamstress. She did not personally see herself as sewing the flag. She could sew really well, said Rebecca of her grandmother, but she was one of those people who would just look at something and make it, hats and dresses. She was extraordinary, she said. Well, okay. So it goes into a little bit about the artist being born and so on. Vienna's design was something that came with her dream after a summer of wrestling privately with the idea for the flag. And then it talks about in the story, and I thought this was good, about how she came up with the idea for the Wyoming flag. Okay, well, the Great Seal of the state of Wyoming serves as the heart of the flag, representing truly Western custom branding. The bison, once the icon of the plains. Red was for red men who knew and loved our country long before any of us. White was for purity and uprightness. Blue, beautiful, okay, and then finally red, white, and blue in the flag. So, okay. The problem is, though, when you take a look at her original design and the way we fly it now, we have the bison facing the wrong way, the granddaughter says. And I can see it because they show a picture here in the story. By the way, this is for Cowboy State Daily, a really good story. If you know the American flag, the way it was, for those who've been in the military, you have the flag patch on your sleeve, let's say. Which way does it go? Well, the flag is never in retreat. It's always moving in a forward direction, never retreating. So you know which way the stars and stripes go and the stars go and which way the stripes go, right? So the Wyoming bison is supposed to be essentially walking, I'm thinking it's sort of like the opposite direction for some reason. I'm looking at the two. But yeah, basically the way she originally designed it is backwards from the way we're flying it right now. I take a look at it and I think, yeah, but don't you want the bison walking in the same direction as the American flag is moving? So I kind of wonder, even though they found out something interesting at Cowboy State Daily, that when we fly the Wyoming flag, the bison is facing the opposite way from its original design. But I look at it and think, yes, but I would like it moving the same way as the American flag, so personally I don't have a problem with it. I just thought that was a really unique story that we had, that Cowboy State Daily had come up with when I was looking at it. It's a long story, if you like reading a long-form article about the creation in our flag in this state.
Woke Radio, WOKE, where we're 100% solar powered, giving you sustainable programming and weather says calm. No power. The sun's shining, right? Maybe we can get Mom's treadmill hooked up to the grid.
If it's happening in Wyoming, it's on Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods from K2 Radio. Join the conversation at 888-97-WOODS.
7:45 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Off we go to talk to Don Day from Day Weather. So, okay, Don, I'm taking a look at the temperatures. The first part of the conversation I want to have with you this morning is about a little bit of a yo-yo temperature thing, because it kind of bobs up and down the next few days.
Yeah, that was after a really warm weekend. Temperatures well above average. We had some record highs yesterday. But today is, some of you, especially in the central and north, are feeling it cooler this morning. There's a cold front up in Saskatchewan that's sending some cooler air south. So that's going to give us a little bit of that yo-yo effect. It is, we're going to see temperatures down, but they're going to go right back up, then down a little bit again by the end of the week. Okay. Now, at the same time, I spent a lot of time driving on a good part of Wyoming. I put a lot of miles on this weekend.
We need rain, but I look at that forecast and I don't have much hope.
We don't. Well, one couple of things. You and I talk about this every year about climatologically speaking. You do have some times a year where it just gets harder to rain, and this is one of them. You tend to have some dry periods in the fall season before we start to really change seasons and get colder, and we're kind of in that right now. Now this is a bit longer than your typical dry spell, and unfortunately it's going to go a little bit longer. We have fire activity that's picked up again, so we got to be really, really careful, because over the next week to 10 days, the prospects of rain are very low. We're going to have these breezy periods, and humidities are very low, so we certainly don't want anything new to get started. I am expecting the middle to the end of the month, we're going to do a 180. We'll see this pattern go the other direction, but it's going to be probably 10 days plus before that happens.
Okay. And there you go with the dry and the windy. And I've also noticed, now this is, you use, scientific instruments and stuff like this. For me, when it comes to stuff like humidity, I go by my chapped lips. And when I start grabbing chapstick and we're not even quite into October yet, that tells me something, Don.
Yeah. Or, you get a balloon, a little party balloon, and rub it on your hair if you have any. Then see how well it sticks to the wall.
Okay. Yeah.
That static charge when you walk across a carpeted room and touch the doorknob.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a good sign.
No, you don't touch the doorknob. You sneak up behind someone and touch them.
You said that, not me.
It's what I do anyway. So, okay, we got probably 10 days, maybe a little bit more before we finally get some wet anyway, right?
Yeah, and if we do have frontal systems, the source region they're coming from, like the front today, it's just not coming from an area with moisture. We're just in a really big log jam right now.
Okay.
And the areas that don't want rain are going to get rain. Areas that need it won't get it.
All right. Thank you, Don. Don Day with day weather. So, there's the up and down temperatures and not a whole lot of wet for a little while longer. Be very careful. Don't spark anything out there right now, because, boy, we have enough to deal with fires as it is. Off we go to the icebox. Frank Gambino is waiting by. Okay, Frank, I told you I came up with something interesting about tailgating.
All right. Yes.
According to this story, weekends, there's a lot of people who like to get all geared up, and you've seen them. These are like professional tailgaters.
Yes, they are. I've seen it, yes.
They are good at this, and they love not just having fun in their own little parking spot there, but the camaraderie with everybody else.
You're talking everybody walking by, the people that are next to you. It's a big reunion, really.
Yeah, and they don't go to the game.
Really?
About 24%. And in some cases, in some parts of the country, up to 29% of these people are solely there for the tailgating.
That would make sense. So, sometimes, like at NFL games, you still got to you got to find a free place to park, which is rare. Yeah. So you just pay to park and just party all day.
Okay.
I've seen people with TVs.
Sure.
They bring their big screen TV and they set it up and they watch the game.
Okay, let's add up the numbers here. How much for a parking space?
At the minimum, $40.
Okay. Now, how much if it was a good team? I mean, we don't have to be Super Bowl. So it's going to cost you. Okay. So for $40, I can get one space and pack everybody in.
Yeah.
At $100 per person, I'm up in the nosebleed section.
Well, yeah.
Okay. So why not just show up in the parking lot, rent the space, just party there?
You could, but then again, when everyone is screaming in the stadium and you're outside and you're like,
yes.
I wish I was in there watching this.
No, I'm sitting out there thinking, you idiots spent $100 a pop to get in there. And then how much were they spending for beer?
Well, yeah.
And all the other food products out there, boy, besides the seat, they're spending a lot of money on all of the other things. In the meantime, you've got your parking space, you got your beer, you got your food, you're not going anywhere.
I didn't know you were so miserly.
Oh, Frank, you have no idea. But yes, I look at things all the time and say, I really appreciate what you're doing, but I'm not spending money on that.
Come on.
No, there's times I will spend money on something, but not that, okay?
All right. College football, the Wyoming Cowboys put a notch in the left column for the first time this year. They outlasted Air Force 31-19 on Saturday night in Laramie. On offense, the Pokes just looked dreary. and they trailed 13-7, but put it together in the second half with a couple of rushing touchdowns from quarterback Evan Swoboda. After 4 iffy games, he played much, much better, and he threw the ball 15 of 21 for 165 yards without an interception. UW finally displayed an effective running game, so the Air Force was getting blocked up front. Sam Scott ran for 97 yards and a touchdown for UW, and the Cowboy defense allowed just 6 points in the second half, and it certainly helped that the offense was on the field a lot in the second half. So the Pokes are 1-4 overall, 1-0 in Mountain West play. Air Force drops to 1-3 overall, 0-1 in league play. Cowboys have this week off. They'll take on San Diego State on the 12th of October. High school football from Friday, first and 4A, number 1 Sheridan drilled number 5 Kelly Walsh 56-0. Second-rated Campbell County all over Laramie 40-7. Third-rated Cheyenne East up number 4 in the Trona 14-13. Rock Springs improved to 3-2 as they hammered Whittle Cheyenne South 58-0. And Thunder Basin won their first game of the year, beating Cheyenne Central 22-20. In 2A, Glen Rock lost big to Wheatland 40-zip. Burns lost big to Bighorn 49-7. In 1A 6-man, Riverside over KC 36-20, and Casper Christian lost to Encampment 82-33. In the NFL from yesterday, the Denver Broncos are 2-2 with a 10-9 pillow fight win over the New York Jets on the road in the rain. Bronco offense was just plain horrible, especially in the first half, but Bronco quarterback Bo Nix actually threw his first career NFL touchdown pass. Too bad Nix was minus 7 yards passing in the first half and threw for a grand total of 60 yards on 12 of 25 throwing the football. It was raining, so we'll give him that. And the Bronco defense sacked Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers 5 times in the rain. Yet New York could have gone ahead late in the game, but missed a 50-yard field goal down the stretch. The Broncos will host the Las Vegas Raiders this week. High school tennis, the season wrapped up on Saturday in Gillette. Cheyenne Central won the boys and the girls team titles. Paula Melizzo of Laramie won the boys' #1 singles championship, and he finished second a year ago. Haley Mathis-Breitkoff of Cheyenne Central won the #1 girls singles championship for the last 2 years. She was the state champion in #2 singles, and that's it in sports.
I wonder how many people at tailgate parties are just tailgate party crashers.
Well, I've done it.
Uh-huh.
So you got to kind of just, you go down the aisles, and just kind of, maybe somebody says, hey, how's everything? And you go, hey, how's everything? And here, have a beer, or something to eat. Okay. Now, that happens to me, like when I was going to like games in Laramie, for Cowboy games, people were more than gracious and generous. Mm-hmm. Whatever you want. Trust me, when you're tailgating, you cook double.
Oh my God! Yeah,
from what you actually need.
So the tailgaters kind of expect party crashers. Then.
Yeah, and that's fine. That's part of the deal.
Okay. I just trying to figure out what the general attitude was of everybody out there, and I would bet some people are. It depends on where you are, because if you're in some cities where the people are just jerks, they don't want people crashing. But other places, hey, come on in.
You know what? And they do it to fans for the other team. Come on in and have a drink and something to eat with us.
No, you said that wrong. Come in, loser.
No, you don't say that.
Have a pity beer.
No, Glenn, that's how brawl starts in the tailgate area, and they don't want any of that.
All right, let's Wake Up Wyoming. Six the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. It's a Monday, so rinse and repeat.
Today's show is sponsored by Dissolving Underwear. Because who wants to wear wet undies anyway?
Yeah, just do what I do. Don't wear any at all. It's the most dangerous time of the program every single day at this time, which is open phones.
Warning. Wake Up Wyoming is about to enter daily open phones. This means that anyone will be allowed to call in and talk about anything. I mean, imagine if we actually allowed you on air to say anything you wanted. Scary, right? Well, we're just that brand of crazy. If you are offended by what other people think, then maybe you want to tune out right about now. Just saying. If you should choose to call, just remember, the more funny and interesting you are, the longer Glenn will keep you on the line. Obnoxious jerks will be hung up on. Dave, all right, strap in, and let's do this thing.
888-97 Woods the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. Talk about what I'm talking about or change the subject. Fine, I'll just kind of roll with the whole thing. Okay, so I was talking earlier this morning. I'm going to cover it a little bit more again. some new fires and some big fires in Wyoming. Also, there's a hurricane that moved up through Florida and the east coast of the United States, which, of course, has some people singing this song.
So put on your respirator and let's fix that generator. And while we're out, we'll mend our fences too. See, I'm not afraid of dying, just got reasons for surviving. I want one more day in the apocalypse with you.
Now, real quick, going back to here, Wyoming. So I was up in the Bighorns, went up to Buffalo, then up Highway 16, getting fall color pictures, things like that. A friend of mine, Jessica, who's a ranger up there, I call her Ranger Jessica, was driving in front of us. Mainly, I told her I wanted her to lead us around because she was in her official vehicle on duty. And I told her I don't want a cop riding my behind end the entire time I'm up there, which she laughed. But anyway, she showed us some great fall colors, but also we got some pictures, and you can see them on the Wake Up Wyoming site this morning. North of Sheridan is a really big fire going right now. And it is so big that the smoke coming out of there, it's pines and so on. So you can imagine, not like a grass fire. So big, flames so high, the smoke coming out of there. At first, I thought it was a thunderstorm building. And then Jessica said to me, it could be because, they do make their own weather. And I thought she's right. They do. They do make, if it's big enough, it could actually start to create its own storm. Unfortunately, it's not going to be a rain thunderstorm where the rain can put itself out. It's going to be just more lightning coming out of there. But yeah, if you're from Buffalo heading north to Sheridan or just in the Sheridan area, look at that, what's coming out of the mountains up there. It's impressive, I guess is one way to say it. So one hard-fought fire also over when you go to Du Bois and then up near Togati Pass, up in that area. Once again, there's a whole bunch more burning up there, and a lot of it's timber and gotten out of control. Now, I just got done at 7:45 talking with Don Day from Day Weather about the weather we have right now, which we do have some nice temperatures, fluctuating temperatures too, back and forth between a little bit cooler, a little warmer, a little cooler. Some days will be a little on the breezy side. What we don't have, unfortunately, is any wet coming in for a while. And this is part of what I wanted to get into. Now, hold that thought, because this really, right now, is a tinderbox. We even have a story on the Wake Up Wyoming site this morning. You folks in southeast Wyoming, all that grass you have out there, careful. Talk about something that's ready at a flashpoint right now. And I did get somebody, this is a friend of ours in Wheatland, Kevin from Wheatland. He said, just FYI, and he's texted me this using the Wake Up Wyoming app. He said, we're en route to a very large wildfire near Dreyer in Platte County. Several homes are threatened. Visibility on Highway 26 between I-25 and Guernsey may be bad in that area. I know exactly where he's talking about. And yeah, could be very bad in that area. All right, so that's what we're dealing with. And of course, if you take a look at a smoke and fire map, if you go out west, Idaho has had a bad year, as well as Northern California. And we're into a very dry period out west right now. Having said that, let's go to the East Coast. Talk about too much, way too much. So that hurricane, the meteorologists were kicking around what number they thought that the storm might get up to. They finally settled on, well, maybe a Category 4, and it goes up to 5, and that's it. Now, for those people who keep saying that we're going to have more hurricanes than ever before, and they're going to be more intense than ever before, actually, this has been a rather quiet hurricane season. Despite some of the damage that's been done, we haven't had that many storms. And the past few seasons have been a little on the quiet side. Now, there are years, as you know, when we have more fires out west than other years. There's years that when you get on the East Coast that they have a lot of hurricanes, and there's other years they hardly have any. Overall, nothing really unusual is happening. The numbers are not going up. What happened in the Florida area is that hurricane went scraping up Florida's west coast during high tide, making the storm surge just incredible. And as I've told you before, it's the storm surge in a hurricane that really gets you as far as the worst of it. Now, there's still a lot bad that can happen, but the worst of it, that storm surge. Thankfully, even though they did have a lot of storm surge up the west coast of Florida, there's even worse than that. Thankfully, that hit the Big Bend area, which is mostly marshland, and it absorbed it. But still, if you go up and down the west coast of Florida, a lot of damage was done. Now, my thought is, having grown up there in the southwestern part of Florida, my parents even knew when we moved there, we're moving to a hurricane zone. It's going to happen from time to time. So anybody who builds, I can show you areas where there's beautiful homes, docks, boats, and people want to live right on the water. And you certainly can. People look at these little islands. Oh, I would love to have a house on that little island out there, right on the water. You can certainly do that. Go ahead, buy the land, build your house. Just understand, that's a hurricane zone. Now, you may go 20, 30 years without ever being hit by a storm, but someday it's going to get hit. So a couple of years ago, I was telling you guys live on the air as a major hurricane was slamming directly into my hometown of Sanibel Island. But even at the time, I was looking at it thinking, I knew that this was going to happen someday. Because the island I grew up on is right smack dab in the middle of a hurricane zone. It's like people who build a house right along the Mississippi River, right on the river. What do you think is going to happen? Someone who builds a house right up the middle of Tornado Alley. What are you risking there? You know what's going to happen. Now, another place that got hit by a lot of rain from this hurricane, go up to Asheville, North Carolina, and that's another area I know well. My family's got a cabin up in the Carolina Mountains. Now, our cabin's more north of Asheville, but still, I know the area. Those mountains are beautiful. They used to be among the tallest on the planet, but that was a very long time ago. Now they've worn down to these big, beautiful, rolling green mountains. It's stunningly beautiful. The problem, though, with that is if you get enough rain and it saturates the land, I mean, really saturates it, things are just going to slide. You get mudslides when there's way too much rain, which is what happened around Asheville. And now people have been cut off. They're trying to find missing people. I mean, we're talking big mudslides. There's a highway, an entire highway that's just wiped out. And that's just because so much rain fell in such a short amount of time, it made a huge mudslide area. But you understand that if you live in that area, you should anyway, that's what can happen here. Anyone who lives out west where we're living right now here in Wyoming, you understand. Prairie fires happen. They do. We have years that are really wet enough that we don't have to worry really about any kind of fires. Then there's other years that we're not going to get really much of anything. And even talking with Don Day last hour, he was saying this is a dry time of year. And we have been drier this time for a little bit longer. But, the year before we were green right up until now and beyond now because we got so much rain. It's never the same year after year. But if you're someone who lives out in the prairie, you should always be aware of it, and that can happen, right? If you decide to put your home up there where there's a lot of big, beautiful pine trees and timber, you, of course, know. On occasion, we're going to have a dry year, and what are you at risk of? All right. Just so all I'm doing here is just trying to put it into perspective, common sense. South of Dwyer Junction and Guernsey. Is that where that fire? Okay. They're fighting a new fire down there, which I'm trying to find some information on. As soon as I get some, I'll go ahead and pass it on to you.
Ain't no way you'll ever find me behind the wheel of an electric car. I want that 10 miles per gallon, oil leaking, no muffler having, screaming V8 driving down the highway.
When you need to know quicker than the morning paper or the 5 o'clock news, you need Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods. Mornings on K2 Radio.
8:21's the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Chet and Yoder says, I remember as a kid watching flooding down there and houses floating down the river. You mean that? Well, down south, yeah. That does happen from time to time. If you're just joining me, what I'm talking about is, well, hurricane goes up the East Coast. They have too much water. And out here out west, we have not enough water. And I was complaining that the people out there east could share some of your water with us, if you would. Forecast doesn't show much relief for at least the next 10 to 12 days or so until we finally get something in that might give us a hand as far as wetness is concerned. So, turning down the CO2 level is not going to change anything. Nothing. Not a thing. For those people who would like to solve the problem of weather-related injuries, issues, you're not going to solve the problem by, well, if we just change the CO2 level, everything will be, we can stabilize the weather. It doesn't work that way. That's not how weather works. And if you go back and read human history, if you're someone who actually does read human history, you'll find that long before humans were ever industrialized, they had to deal with droughts and floods and fires and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So is this anything new at all? No. And the idea that, well, it's happening more than ever before and stronger than ever before, it actually is not. And yeah, there is evidence to show, no, it's not. What we have to do as humans is just realize and learn the risk and sometimes even accept the risk. That's why I say, I completely understand if I look at a little island somewhere, down where I grew up, and go, wow, look at that cool little island. Wouldn't it be neat to put a cottage right there? Yes, it would. Put a little dock out there into the bay. Oh, it'd be great. Just understand, sometimes the tide gets really high. Sometimes a tropical storm goes by. And so you run the risk, if a big storm comes your way, get out of there. Which, by the way, I never understood people who, when a huge storm is coming, they don't move out of the way. I'm not going to let some hurricane scare me. You should. If you were smart, you would move. Get out of the way. And come back and clean up later. That's how that works. I understand when people see a river, I want to build a house right on that river. Go ahead. It'll be beautiful. But, rivers rise at times. Sometimes rivers are so low there's almost no water, if any at all. Tell you a story I saw a few years ago in North Carolina. It was probably about 20 years ago, North Carolina. And there was a drought that the Carolinas was going through. Now, think about this. Now they have too much water. At the time, they were in a drought. And there was a reporter from Charlotte, North Carolina, that walked out into a pond, and the water finally got up to about his knees. And he put his finger up to his chin and said, the water should be up to here. And I'm watching this thinking, should be there? It should be there. Should be? No. In fact, I think he actually used the phrase, is supposed to be here, is what he said. The water's supposed to be up to here. Supposed to be. No, that doesn't work. That lake, first off, that he was in, that pond, was man-made. But even if it was natural, it doesn't matter. For those who have been around long enough, what happens to the level of water in ponds? It's always changing. Even big lakes. It's always changing, isn't it? It's never the same. It just depends on what year you're in, or even what century you're in, as to whether that's going to be full or somewhere in the middle or down below. There is no it's supposed to be. Now, even I mentioned before, those people who move to Tornado Alley, it's a beautiful country out there. If that's what you want to do, go move there. You understand the risk, though, right? All right. Want to move to some place like Wyoming, Idaho? It's stunning out here. You understand the risk, though, right? And there's always a risk somewhere. You just got to pick what risk do you want. And when that happens, should it happen during your lifetime, what are you going to do about it? What happens when that big blizzard comes out in Wyoming, and it has happened? Remember, what year was it, folks, in the 1930s? Wasn't it that I have a book back here behind me somewhere about this. A big blizzard came in and just buried Wyoming. And it wasn't just one storm. It was one after the next. And it just continued to bury Wyoming. And it stayed that way for quite a while before things finally melted off. If you move out here, you got to understand that sometimes, last winter for us was kind of on the mild side. It's not going to stay that way, though. And we can fully expect to have another winter come along that's just going to absolutely bury us. Welcome to planet Earth, where the weather isn't supposed to be anything. It's going to change from one year to the next. And I no longer living out here have to worry about hurricanes, but I do have to worry about fires and the next big blizzard that might blow through. So it's just a matter of, there's no place you can live, by the way, that doesn't have its occasional natural disasters. And as I started by saying with all of this, and just dialing back the CO2 level is not going to stabilize anything. It's just simply not going to stabilize a thing. You've got to be prepared. That's the next thing I find. I always scratch my head and wonder, when we do have some big weather event coming, and people rush to the store to buy things at the last minute. You mean you weren't prepared in advance? Living in Florida, we got near hurricane season. I always had something so I could take off if needed be. Yeah, here comes a hurricane. I'm out. I didn't have to carry much. I'm a single guy. I can take just a few things with me, but I was ready to go. Here in Wyoming, we get into the winter months, and I start looking at the weather and think, we could have a big weather system coming in. So in advance, I just make sure there's extra stuff in the house. That's why God invented Sam's Club and Walmart and places like that, so you can go ahead. So you don't have to buy toilet paper at the last minute. Which reminds me, I am completely out of toilet paper at home. I add that to my list of things I got to do on the way back, and I'm not just saying that because I'm on the air. I am actually completely out of toilet paper at home. Glad we had this discussion. I just reminded myself of that. Coming up on 8:30, local news coming your way after local news update on the weather forecast. A nice long segment of open phones. You can jump right in. Talk about what I'm talking about or change the subject if you want. That's fine by me. 888-97 Woods, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. On that weather forecast coming up, you will hear that we're going to be fluctuating quite a bit over the next couple of days. You know, you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes. So I would suggest bring layers wherever you go so you can layer up and layer down. Let's wake up, Wyoming.
Day and Dry.
This program is intended for immature audiences only. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods. Weekdays at 6 on air, on Alexa, and 24/7 on the Wake Up Wyoming app.
8:36 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Some good news for you. This is good. And thanks to Common Sense from Cheyenne. He was driving up I-25 and Dwyer Junction. I know that well. I use that. That's the rest stop there. So if you're heading up I-25 and you want to turn to Guernsey, that big rest stop right there, okay, that's basically there. So just a little bit, what'd you say, was it north of there, the junction itself? Well, anyway, there's a grass fire going, and I did get from Kevin in Wheatland that we're en route to a large fire near Dwyer and Platte County, several homes threatened. From the looks of Common Sense driving by, he said it looks like they pretty much got it under control and out, which is nice because you know how fast something like that can get out of control. And I'm going to check one more time just to make sure. Is it something that's popped up on the map at all? Because if they got it as a fire that's happening, no, it hasn't. Okay. Because if it's a fire that's happening and it's a big deal, they'll go ahead and put it on the Wyoming Smoke and Fire map, but it's not even listed here, so okay. All right, 888-97 Woods, the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. So during the course of the weekend, I know that Vice President Kamala Harris decided to go ahead and pay a trip to the border. And what little I did see, because I was so busy this weekend, I didn't spend a whole lot of time watching it, but what I did see of it, she's walking down a border fence, talking to some Border Patrol there, and she sat down for some kind of an interview near the border. And at no time did I see any of the problems that we've been talking about for quite a few years now, because, of course, they're not going to take her to some place where there's an issue.
if she really wanted an education on what was happening on the border, she would have gone to where the problem was or problems are. And there's several different places that are just flat out being overwhelmed. But she didn't go there. But she promises she's going to be on the tough on the border next year. Not like she couldn't have done that the past 3 years. Not like she can't do that right now. So, story that I have in front of me, Harris proposed executive action if she's president would build on President Joe Biden's current policy of essentially closing the U.S. asylum system unless illegal border crossings, well, as long as they're below 1,500 daily. And I even look at that and go, that's way too much, but all right. Harris would lower the threshold and extend it to a period, and I don't believe that she'll actually do any of this. The action might, oh, and by the way, she keeps blaming Trump because Trump encouraged supporters and those in Congress to vote against a border package that would give Biden more money and more power, which, as we know, Biden doesn't need more money or more power to secure the border. He can just do it. He already has everything he needs at his disposal, but that's the way Biden's trying to frame it, or Harris is trying to frame the thing. The action, the story says, might have limited political impact, at least in the short term, but their proposal is designed to send a message that Harris is taking more assertive action on immigration, which we can go back. You can't find this if you want to go ahead and look it up. You can go back and take a listen to what Harris said before she ever became vice president, when she was running for president. Even then, she is someone who's in favor of open borders. So, okay, suddenly now she's changing to say what she thinks the majority of Americans want to hear so she can get elected. Typical politician. But Vice President Harris, the story says, walked along the U.S. border with Mexico on Friday alongside a stretch of border wall built during the Obama administration, talking with border officials about their works. It was a photo op meant to alliterate that she supports border security, one of the biggest concerns voters have about Harris, and to try to defend criticism from her Republican opponent. Quote, they've got a tough job, speaking of the Border Patrol agents, and they need rightly supported to do that job. They're very dedicated. And so I'm here to talk to them about what we can continue to do to support them. So in other words, once again, she's not saying anything, which is very typical. She actually has nothing to say, so let's just toss words out there. There's a real tension, the story says here, that exists in our movement right now. Well, okay, it goes into what Harris is doing with her temporary rhetoric. You get the idea of the story. It goes on for quite a bit. So what I saw during the course of the weekend is, again, she shows up at the border where what doesn't surprise me, really. I think I said this on Thursday or Friday, that they're not going to send her to the border to some place that actually has activity. Not real activity, anyway. She's never seen that. How long was it, do you remember, that she was put in charge of the border? I know they don't like to say border czar. I know Biden never used the word czar, but he did put her in charge of the border, and he said that publicly. And she'll get down there and fix this. She'll do the right thing. She never did a damn thing. She never visited the border at all. Eventually, she made a trip down there. And I don't mean this one. I mean, at some time before. She eventually, when Biden was still running for president, she made a trip down there. But even then, did she really get down to where the issue was? And no, she didn't. She was someplace kind of near the border. She talked to a few people in front of the cameras. It's a photo op. You know that. And so was this. Let's have a photo op where she's walking by a border, and it was a pretty impressive-looking wall with barbed wire going up. You know, the vertical metal that they have, and then they have barbed wire wrapped around that as well. And I even still say that's not going to hold people back who really want to get in there. And then, of course, the press conference where the border is within sight during the press conference. They're sitting in on folding chairs outside, and the border's in the distance there. And there was an interview that Harris did. And while she's talking, I'm looking at the border behind her, and again, I'm thinking they took her to a place where there isn't anybody. So what do you think would happen, just a hypothetical for you, if we took Harris and the cameras and the press and took her to a place, along with the media, okay, because they got to see this too, where there was really something going on, and then let her not just talk to Border Patrol agents, but people who live in those communities right on the border and what they're dealing with as well. I don't think the media would change their reaction. They would report what they want you to see, just like Harris would just want you to see and not see certain things. I don't think it would really change anything considering who these people are. And I know that whatever they did see there on that day would never get back to the general public as far as what the reporters covered, what the Harris campaign saw. In other words, we're not going to change their minds. I think their minds are already made up on this. And they're doing something politicians typically do. This is what Harris did on Friday. What politicians typically do. Set the stage, carefully set the script, the stage, the background, to make it look the way, not the way reality shows it, but the way they want you to see it, in the hopes of getting elected. So what will she ever do to fix the border? Nothing. We already know what she would do and not do to fix the border. She's been at it for 3 years. I don't think anything will change.
My name is Carolyn. I'm a recovering Californian. This is for people that are still trapped in California. I hope you get out soon. Tennessee's filled up, so there's a lot. Alabama's looking nice this time of year. Again, I hope you get out, if you make it out. Tennessee, we're full. Sorry you missed it. But Alabama, really good. Really nice in Alabama. Kentucky is great. Georgia, it's dangerous, so maybe too much rain.
Sure, this show is sustainable. We sequester all gas emissions to one room. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods, live on AM 1030 and FM 95.1, weekdays at 6.
8:48 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Off to the icebox we go. Frank Gambino is waiting by. So picture, Frank, something we really don't have in Wyoming that's operational right now anyway, an escalator.
An escalator.
Well,
yeah. They're in the banks.
Yes.
There's two banks in Casper. They both have them.
Yeah.
The airport, I thought, had one.
Well, the airport at one time, I know that the mall in Casper had one.
No, not the mall.
They did in one of the big box stores, but it's not working. The store's closed. But you said a couple of banks have them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they do exist. There's not many.
They do. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and one thing Wyoming doesn't have, I have to repost this story one of these days. Wyoming doesn't have elevator music.
Thank goodness for that.
Well, what's the point?
The tallest building we have is like 9 stories.
Yes. So, yeah. By the time you start getting into the tune, it's over. All right. So I found a sign in front of an escalator. This escalator is refusing to escalate. This has been escalated to the engineer who is on their way up or down.
Right.
You could have just said it was broken.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Unless the escalator is escalating the stress level because the escalator is not escalating.
Yeah. I like this sign. Septic tank pumped. Swimming pools filled. Not the same truck.
No.
Yeah. That's a business sign there. Yeah.
Okay. Now that is truth in advertising.
That really is, yeah. Let's see here. I like this. Do we have a paper shredder here at work?
Maybe.
Okay. I want to go ahead and put
two, actually. So
two. Okay, I want to go ahead and put a sign on it like this one. Suggestion box.
Yeah.
Yeah, see? I think that would, yeah.
Or they'll say, I'm going to file that.
Yes, okay. That's what I'm going to do. Oh, Annie in Casper just sent me a text, and she used one N in my name. going to have to write her a note. You do sports while I do that.
All righty, in high school football from over the weekend on Friday in 4A, top-rated Sheridan drilled number 5 Kelly Walls 56-0. Second-rated Campbell County all over Laramie 40-7. Third-rated Cheyenne East nipped number 4 in the Trona at the Oakley Blanchard Stadium 14-13. Rock Springs improved to 3-2 as they hammered winless Cheyenne South 58-0. And Thunder Basin won their first game of the year, beating Cheyenne Central 22-20. In 2A, Glenrock lost big to Wheatland 40-0. Burns lost big to Bighorn 49-7 and won a 6-man Riverside over KC 36-20. Casper Christian lost big to Encampment 82-33. College football, the Wyoming Cowboys finally put a notch in the left column. They outlasted the Air Force Academy 31-19 on Saturday night in Laramie. On offense, the Pokes looked dreary in the first half and they trailed 13-7, but got it together in the second half with a couple of rushing touchdowns from quarterback Evan Swoboda. After 4 iffy games, he played much, much better and they threw the ball for 165 yards on 15 of 21 attempts without any interceptions. UW finally displayed an effective running game, so the Air Force was getting blocked at the line of scrimmage, and Sam Scott ran for 97 yards and a touchdown. Cowboy defense allowed just 6 points in the second half, and it certainly helped the defense that the offense was on the field a lot in the second half. So the Pokes 1-4 overall and 1-4 overall and 1-0 in Mountain West Conference play. Air Force drops to 1-3 overall, 0-1 in league play. Cowboys will have this week off. They'll take on San Diego State on October 12th. To the National Football League from yesterday, the Denver Broncos are 2-2 after a 10-9 pillow fight in the rain over the New York Jets on the road yesterday. The Bronco offense was just plain horrible in that first half, but quarterback Bo Nix eventually threw his first career NFL touchdown pass. Too bad Nix was minus 7 yards passing in the first half, minus 7, and threw for a grand total of 60 on 12 of 25 passing. It was raining, so that's a bit challenging. However, the Bronco defense didn't mind the rain. They sacked Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers 5 times. Yet, New York could have gone ahead late in the game but missed a 50-yard field goal down the stretch. Broncos will host the Las Vegas Raiders this week. High school tennis, the season wrapped up on Saturday in Gillette. Cheyenne Central won both the boys and girls team titles. Paula Melizzo of Laramie, the boys' #1 singles champion after finishing second a year ago. Haley Mathis-Breitkoff of Cheyenne Central won the #1 girls singles championship after winning the #2 singles championship the last 2 years running. That's it in sports.
So I just noticed that you basically said that UW outlasted their opponents.
Yeah. So it's like a race.
Yes.
You get to the finish line first. Mm-hmm. They're not that far behind. Right. They needed a couple of plays at the end. At this point, winning is winning.
Right. Okay.
I mean, who knows how many games they're going to win the rest of the season? But they have to display hope.
So it
for
just
the rest of the
says
season.
To me that they didn't dominate, they didn't beat, they didn't win, they just outlasted them.
Well, did they won? Did they dominate them? No. Did they have to?
Yes.
No.
They just needed to hang in there
and win.
Hold that spot. All right. Thank you, Frank. Mm-hmm. Coming up on some local business we have to take care of. We're going to roll into news time and then more open phones. Wake up well. 9:06 at time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It is a Monday, so rinse and repeat.
Today's show is sponsored by Dissolving Underwear. Because who wants to wear wet undies anyway?
Who wants to wear underwear anyway? I mean, why bother?
Warning, this show contains reference to guns, liberty, limited government, low taxation, the cult of climate change, free thinking, cigar smoking, short people, rubber chickens, Karen's bureaucracy, liberal buzzwords, tour runs, traffic, toilets, terrible jokes, and more. No apologies will be issued. Guest callers may express any opinion they want without fear of being canceled. Unless you're a loudmouth jerk like Dave, then Glenn will hang up on you. Strap in, hold on to your coffee, and feel free to participate.
This disclaimer does not refer to every person named Dave, just one particular Dave from San Francisco. We know a lot of Daves. They call this show all the time, and they're great people. So don't call this program and complain that we use your name. That would be a real Dave move, Dave.
Now, before I get onto the story I really have lined up for you, I am getting some corrections here, so I'll go ahead and read them. And see, Crane Doctor, he's in Sebring. which is Florida, but he's a Wyoming now. He's living in Sebring, Florida right now. And he said, "Morning, Glenn. I hate to correct you." No, you don't. You love it. But all right, that's okay. Frank was correct. Now, that's the offensive part. Frank was right and I wasn't. All right. Our mall, he's talking Casper, Wyoming, doesn't have an escalator. Okay, now, before I read the rest of the note here, see, I was told that when the mall in Casper was fully functional, filled with stores, back in the heydays when malls were a big thing, that one of the big box stores had an escalator in it. So apparently you're telling me I was wrong about that. Okay, or whoever told me was wrong about that. But okay, you guys would know because you would have been around back then. Hilltop Bank and what was called First National Bank, I believe in downtown, and Wells Fargo are still working. Now, I don't know. The Wells Fargos that I'm familiar with don't have escalators, not anywhere in Wyoming because I bank at Wells Fargo. And the Wells Fargo, or all of the Wells Fargo locations around the Casper area anyway, don't have escalators at all. They have a new building. The big old Lotus Blossom building is not a Wells Fargo anymore. All right, but anyway, years ago, Sears was downtown center, and it had one. Okay, that's what maybe that wasn't a mall Sears, but a downtown Sears. All right, and our airport had one when they had an addition. So there was at one point that the airport in Casper did have a escalator. So, yeah, all right. So according to that, all of the escalators that would have been located in Wyoming were in the Casper area, and there weren't that many. Now, that's a big deal because if you live in a bigger city, they're all over the place. And also, as I've pointed out, and I've written an article, I should republish the article at some point, Wyoming doesn't have any elevator music. We have very few elevators, and the ones we do have don't go that high. So what's the point of elevator music? Just about, it would be like name that tune. You push a button for the elevator. About the time that you are ready to say what song you're listening to, you've already arrived at your floor. So what's the point unless you wanted to play the name that tune thing? Another one, and these people are texting me off the Wake Up Wyoming app, which you can do too. Let's see, Wild Willie at Prairie Center. Best sign I've seen in a septic pump truck was yesterday's Meals on Wheels. Oh, my, Where, Wild Willie, where is Prairie Center? I'd like to know where that is so I can go ahead and look that up because I haven't heard of that one before. All right, so the phone number to get involved in the program is 888-97-WOODS, 888-97-WOODS, or you can do what these guys are doing. They've downloaded the Wake Up Wyoming app, and they're texting me by using the chat option. By the way, this is all free. A couple of the other options, if you're ever out of radio range, and this show is on multiple radio stations, but if you're ever out of radio show range, you'll see at the top right, there is a listen live button. In fact, let me make sure it is the top right? Yeah, so you can just go, it doesn't matter where you are. That's where our friend out of Sebring is listening right now. He's listening off of the Wake Up Wyoming app. Yeah, that's, okay. Yeah, I believe that's, I see if I can go ahead and push this and just listen to myself. Yeah, there we go. So there is a listen live button that you can do there. And also you can hit on demand, which is on the left side of the toolbar, and then hit Wake Up Wyoming and select your episode and listen to old episodes, which are condensed so you don't have to listen to all 4 hours. We get rid of news, sports, weathers, most commercials. So you can just listen to the show later if you want to do that. All right, now, something I wanted you guys to listen to. And I'm going to play a little bit of this, and I'm going to react as I go, as it goes here. Let's go back to John Kerry, who, don't forget, is a climate czar. John Kerry, not anymore, but he was the climate czar. So John Kerry was talking about news and information. And during this panel discussion, he went off a little bit about not just the news media, the press, government information, but government's ability to control information. The longer he speaks, the worse this gets. I'm just going to play and react as we go.
And I think the dislike of and anguish over social media is just growing and growing and growing. And it's part of our problem, particularly in democracies, in terms of building consensus around any issue.
Okay, hold on right there. In terms of building consensus around any issue, because people are not allowed to have opposing opinions or opposing ideas. We're supposed to build consensus. Well, he talks about it in the terms of democracy. Well, what he means by this is free people. If you're talking free people, there isn't going to be a consensus. People have the right to disagree. And that's the frustration with social media, as he calls it. Social media, the point of it, in part, is so we can get out there and have discussions like this. But no, he wants to build a consensus of opinion.
It's really hard to govern today.
Oh, really?
You can't, there's no, the referees we used to have to determine what's a fact and what isn't a fact, are kind of, been eviscerated to a certain.
Okay, let me hold that right there. First off, it's really hard to govern today. You're not supposed to be governing. In a free country, people govern themselves. Your job is to protect that. You're not supposed to be telling us what to do. But, in fact, I'm going to back that up a little bit. I might do a little bit too far, but let's go ahead.
Really hard to govern today.
See, that's that part, really hard to govern. You're not supposed to be telling people what to do and providing for them. We are a republic. We are free people. Okay? We govern ourselves. That's part one. Part two.
You can't, there's no, the referees we used to have to determine what's a fact and what isn't a fact, are kind of, been eviscerated to a certain degree.
Well, that's a good thing, because let's talk about what the referees to decide what is or isn't a fact. Hang on. Some out there that are the worst at misinformation include government and our so-called news media. Some of the biggest lies that have ever come at us have been from government. And John Kerry doesn't want to hear that. He wants government to be the purveyor and the top of the heap when it comes to who decides what is a fact. Government does. How often have they, one, been wrong, been inept, or have just flat out lied to us? And today's news media, if the liberals are in charge, are often on the side of the government and helping them.
And people go and people self-select where they go for their news or for their information.
Okay, good. Okay, see, he's acting as if that's a problem. People self-select where they go with their news and with their information. And I look at that and I think, well, good. We're supposed to be. That we get to decide who we're going to listen to or not listen to based on our own standards. That's what a free country is. And some people make wrong decisions. But remember now, if you decide you're just going to listen to government, can you trust them? Of course not, no. Can you trust our news media, not just to tell the truth, but to get it right? Well, again, how inept and corrupt have they been? So people will go to other sources. But hang on, this is not the worst of it. I'll get to the worst of it in just a minute. 916 Wake Up Wyoming.
Download the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. Listen anywhere and chat live with Glenn during the show on AM 1030 K2 Radio.
9:21's the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. So what I'm doing is I'm playing John Kerry. You remember him. And he's sitting in a panel discussion in front of the news media. They're talking about, well, media in general, information in general. Now, he finds it very difficult to govern people. Well, in a free country, people are not to be governed. They're supposed to govern themselves. And that we can't get a consensus of information because people keep going to get their own information off of the internet from all sorts of different sources. How do we get a consensus of information? Well, you're not supposed to. And by the way, government tends to be inept, corrupt, they lie. So I don't want information necessarily coming from government. But like I said, well, that's why I go looking for other sources. Because governments, and my other sources aren't always correct. I have to learn to discern. That's what being an adult's all about. But okay, this gets worse.
And then you just get into a vicious cycle. So it's really, really hard, much harder to build consensus today than at any time.
Not supposed to.
45, 50 years I've been involved in this.
Not supposed to build consensus.
And, all right. There's a lot of discussion now about how you curb those entities in order to guarantee that you're going to have some accountability on facts, et cetera.
Okay, some accountability on facts, which include government when it lies and news media when they lie.
But look, if people go to only one source and the source they go to is sick and, has an agenda and they're putting out disinformation.
You mean like government?
Our First
Like the
Amendment
news media.
stands as a major block to the...
Wait. I'm going to back up because you need to hear that. But like the news media and government, when they're sick and they lie. But okay, listen to this.
Disinformation, our First Amendment stands as a major block to the ability to be able to just, hammer it out of existence. So,
okay, our First Amendment, I'm going to back that up. Did you hear that? He's got a problem with the First Amendment.
It's an agenda, and they're putting out disinformation. Our First Amendment stands as a major block to the ability to be able to just, hammer it out of existence.
Okay, so he would like to get rid of the First Amendment to be able to hammer out of existence things that he doesn't like that's out there. Because, we got to build some kind of a consensus. But again, what happens when government is either inept or lying? And the same thing goes for the major legacy news media.
So what we need is to win the ground, win the right to govern by hopefully having, winning enough votes that you're free to be able to implement change.
The right to go. You're not supposed to be governing. We're supposed to govern ourselves, but moving on.
Now, obviously, there are some people in our country who are prepared to implement change in other ways. And
so
that's
you're
really
questioning
dangerous.
really if democracy can survive unregulated social media.
I think democracies are very challenged right now and have not proven they can move fast enough or big enough to deal with the challenges that we are facing. And to me, that is part of what this race, this election is all about. Will we break the fever in the United States?
So, John Kerry, who's been in politics for a very long time, but he is obviously someone, I guess you can call him legacy, part of the old guard, part of the establishment. And this is very typical of how I'll go with establishment, how they see things. They're supposed to be governing us. They're supposed to be ruling over us, governing us. And they're supposed to be in charge of what information we have, just in case we find other information that contradicts what he said. As for example, since he's been a big member of the cult of climate change, he would really hate a guy like me or many of the listeners that are out there like you. God forbid we should have a discussion where during the course of that discussion, we disagree with anything that he's had to say on that issue. And the amount of misinformation he's put out over the years, over the decades, he would really hate to have not just you and I having that discussion online, but then we have news media who would help us as well. Alternate news media, not the normal legacy news media that John Kerry is comfortable with, but alternate news media out there that he doesn't, and that's why he has a problem with the First Amendment. As he said, you just heard him say right there that we have a problem that we have the First Amendment, which allows us not only to get into these conversations, not in person, but online, but also there's different news sources out there. And that's one of the things that I've been looking at. You should see, I've told you about before, I have a files that I keep when I go looking for news so I can figure out what to talk to you guys about every single day. And most legacy media news outlets, whether they were former newspapers or magazines or cable network news, whatever the case is, I don't even go to anymore because they've gotten so bad at it and corrupt and inept, et cetera, et cetera. And when it comes to anything that comes out of government, whenever government reports labor statistics or name something, not just economic numbers, but name something that government reports, I often find myself skeptical, not believing it, because the number of times I found out that it just wasn't true. And so where do I go to dig for information? Well, I found alternate news sources out there that are actually very good at it. I'm not looking for the echo chamber thing, by the way. I want people who oftentimes I disagree with, but do a good job at reporting the facts. So let me see. ID John What would have happened to cancel Kerry's free speech when he protested against the Vietnam War? Yes, and he told a lot of lies during that time, didn't he? Chet and Yoder, I cannot repeat that on the air, but I understand what you're saying. Tumbleweed in KC, septic truck in Las Vegas. A flush is better than a full house. You see, now that makes perfect sense for a septic truck in Las Vegas. I'm sorry, we were talking about very handy little signs earlier. That's why she tossed that one in there. So, okay. I think John Kerry is a perfect example, what you just heard right there. He is a perfect example, and I might have to play that again at some point, of what the establishment politician sounds like, thinks like. And I don't just mean Democrats. I mean establishment politicians. Those that have been around for way too long, how they see themselves and how they see you. Especially this idea that, well, what are we supposed to do to govern? I would love to say, Mr. Kerry, we're in a free country here. You're not supposed to be governing me or anybody else. We govern ourselves. And government's job is to protect that. And when it comes to opinions, we're not supposed to be in a consensus of anything. We're free people in a free country, which means we're going to disagree with each other, and that's okay. Coming up on 9:30, local news coming your way. Update on your weather forecast. Wake Up Wyoming.
Got something to say? Call 888-97-WOODS or chat with Glenn on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app from K2 Radio.
9:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Back to the phones I go. James in Casper wants to talk about the weather. Hello, James.
Hello, Glenn.
Yes, sir.
I was interested in your comments about the storms that came through years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I was 12 years old in Rapid City, South Dakota, when that blizzard of 49 swept across Wyoming and in western South Dakota into central South Dakota. We were without traffic in or out of Rapid City for 11 days.
Wow.
Now, can you imagine no traffic in or out? That's by air, train, bus, car, however.
Yeah.
And today, they estimate the grocery stores would be empty in 3 days.
Yep.
Now, they emptied out during that 11 days, but in those days, most people had pretty good pantry.
Yeah.
You can, a lot of canned goods, they self-canned and garden stuff that they'd saved. And so it wasn't that serious an issue like I believe it would be today.
Yeah. See, I think today we have an instant society where if you want food, you just go to the store or you go to some fast food joint and just there it is. Back then, storing food and preparing food was much more of a process. So people kept it around and they kept a store of it because even just to get to the store was much harder back then. So people had a nice big supply. Today, everything's so instant, we don't keep much in the house.
That's true. Now, we had a big two-story farmhouse. It had been a farmhouse. It was in town at that time. And we got so much snow, we could actually climb the snow up to the roof of the house and sled off the roof of our house.
Wow.
We had to tunnel to get out the front door.
Yeah.
It was pretty interesting.
Okay.
I also was interested in your comments about escalators, and I didn't hear your whole discussion. I don't know if they still have it, but until fairly recently, there was an escalator in First Interstate Bank.
Yeah, several people said First Interstate Bank, so I would have to go there and to experience that. And there used to be one at the airport, too. They don't have that one there anymore. Yeah. But I still hold on to what I was saying before, that there's no place in Wyoming that has elevator music. What would be the point?
Yes, I heard that point. I wouldn't disagree with you.
All right, James. Thanks for calling in. Appreciate it. No, James calling in from Casper. One more thing I'm just going to touch on this, and I'll see if I can get into it a little bit tomorrow, just for time's sake here. Here's a story that says, from the New York Times, so you know it's garbage. Speaking of John Kerry saying, I'm going to be picking on him for a while. We need to get a consensus out there. Story says fall allergies are real, and they're getting worse. Underneath it says, climate change is making this allergy season longer and more intense. No, it's not. But, and I can show you that it's not, but hang on a second. Okay, so once again, here are people who want to solve all of your problems. Do you have allergies? Now, I'm happy to say I've never suffered from allergies until it's not really, I wouldn't even say allergies. When I moved to Wyoming, there's some things out here that I'm not used to. So there's a certain time of year where my nose runs a bit more. That's about it. And I wake up in the middle of the night having to blow my nose. That's about the worst that I have. Other than that, I've never really suffered any kind of allergy. But for those of you who do, what they're trying to convince you is you give government enough of your money, which is basically they want all of it, and control over you and control over your property. And they will fix your allergy problems. Yeah. So you never have to worry about it again. They will fix your allergies. They will fix the weather. This morning I had a lot of discussion for you guys about fires in Wyoming and also in Idaho right now. They've got it going real bad. Don't worry about it now. You give them enough control over you and your property and your life, and they will fix the weather for you so you never have to go through this again. Hurricanes that hit Florida, move their way up the East Coast, never happen again. Just give them enough control, and they will take care of that for you. So we'll never suffer another hurricane or tornado or flood or fire or anything because they'll fix it. They'll even fix your allergies. Now, when you go back and take a look at the track record of government, how good are they really at fixing anything? Which is why when it even comes to, hey, we're gonna fix the housing crisis, the housing crisis they caused. Yeah, we're gonna fix the economy, the one they broke, by the way. They broke the economy, but they're gonna fix the economy. Oh, give them anything. The border crisis, they're gonna fix that. The border crisis they created, they're gonna fix that. Don't worry about it. How's their track record been? Right. So do you really trust them to fix your allergies too? Yeah, didn't think so.
Why are you crying?
Because I don't want to be an adult.
You don't want to be an adult? I cry about that a lot too. Why don't you want to be an adult?
Because it's not fun. It's gonna be not fun. It's like a prison being an adult.
It is like a prison being an adult.
Come on, B. I don't want to be an adult. I don't even want to be a teenager. I just want to be a kid.
Me too. Can I be a kid?
No.
Now, Glenn Woods fits in your pocket with the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. This is AM 1030 K2 Radio.
9:48 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Off we go back to the icebox. Frank Gambino is waiting by. Okay, Frank, I got a real road trip treat for you.
All right, I like treats.
Like this one. So
trick or treat.
You're in Cheyenne.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And you're leaving. You're heading north. Okay. Don't get on the interstate right away. Get on Yellowstone Road. Yes. That's going to be. It parallels the interstate on the east side.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, yeah.
And as you're heading out, you're just going to be on just at the north edge of town, just sort of leaving the last few houses and buildings and so on. And you'll see on the right-hand side, Yellowstone Road and Loop Road. But I don't expect you to see that first.
No.
I expect you to see the big boy holding up a huge hamburger.
Where?
Right there.
Why have I missed this?
I see it's right on, because you don't, you get on the interstate. You don't take this road.
Like from the Big Boy restaurant?
Yes. You have no idea because you never take that road. You're always on the interstate.
No, I've never even seen it.
Right. Okay. Now, as soon as I see this, I swing the car around.
Okay.
Getting a picture of that. Got a friend of mine with me who's a photographer. We got to get a picture of that. We get out and we notice, wait. Behind the big boy, There's a couple of trees over there and a little bit of bush. And standing there is a life-size Bigfoot.
Life-size?
Yeah, made out of the same material as the big boy.
Oh.
Up on a house, because the house is sort of up on a little bit of a rise there. There is a huge green toad staring down at us.
This is not the Sasquatch.
No, it's not.
Or the big boy.
Yes, now it's a toad.
What else do they have? Jack in the Box there, too?
Off to the north side of the house, they've got some horses that you would expect to see on a carousel. Like they're running around
like
in
a merry-go-round, yeah.
Behind the house is a huge rooster on top of the hill. Around another side of the house, for a carousel, there's a giraffe. Oh. Also up front, like right up front, right near the front of the house, life-size, as tall as you, wearing roller skates and holding a tray, Betty Boop.
Really?
Yeah. You can walk right up to Betty Boop and say hi to her. I know you've always wanted to.
Did you knock on the front door?
No, it didn't look like anyone was there, and the house looks kind of creepy. Now, also...
What, no one's home?
In the front yard, there's a camel just sort of laying there in the grass. And then also looking very proud off into the distance is a life-size chief, Indian chief.
Okay.
Also, they have a dinosaur like you see in front of the Sinclair gas stations with a saddle on it.
A dinosaur with a saddle on it.
So I see all of this stuff, and this is all because I saw the big boy, and that made me go, whoa, and spin the car around. Get your camera out.
Wow.
And then I get out and I see the rest of it.
Why isn't this guy charging admission?
See, he put us in his yard so we can see it for free. I mean, what do you think?
Well, then that works too. College football, the Wyoming Cowboys now with a notch in the left column. They beat the Air Force Academy on Saturday, 31-19. That's win number 1. On offense, the Pokes looked pretty dreary in the first half and trailed 13-7, but they put it together in the second half with a couple of rushing touchdowns from quarterback Evan Swoboda. After 4 iffy games, he played much, much better, and he threw the ball for 165 yards without any interceptions. UW finally displayed an effective running game, so the Air Force was getting blocked up front by the O-line, and Sam Scott ran for 97 yards and a touchdown. Cowboy defense allowed just 6 points in the second half, and it certainly helped that the Cowboy offense was on the field a lot in the second half. So the Pokes 1-4 overall and 1-0 in Mountain West play. The Academy drops to 1-3 overall, 0-1 in league play. Cowboys will have this week off, and they'll take on San Diego State on October the 12th. High school football from Friday in 4A. Number 1 Sheridan drilled number 5 Keller Walls 56-zip. Second-rated Campbell County all over Laramie 42-7. Third-rated Cheyenne East nipped number 4 in the Trona 14-13. Rock Springs improved to 3-2. They hammered Windless Cheyenne South 58-0. Thunder Basin won their first game of the year, beating Cheyenne Central 22-20. In 2A, Glen Rock lost again, this time the Wheatland 40-0. Burns lost big to Bighorn 49-7. In 1A 6-man, Riverside over KC 36-20. And Casper Christian lost to Encampment 82-33. In the NFL from yesterday, the Denver Broncos are 2-2 after a 10-9 pillow fight win over the New York Jets on the road in the rain. Bronco offense was just plain bad in the first half, but quarterback Bo Nix threw his first career NFL touchdown pass. Too bad Nix was minus 7 yards passing in the first half and threw for a grand total of 60 yards on 12 of 25. It was raining, so that's a bit challenging. However, the Bronco defense seemed to like the rain. They sacked Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers 5 times. Yet, New York could have gone ahead late in the game, but missed a 50-yard field goal. Broncos will host the Las Vegas Raiders this week. High school tennis season wrapped up on Saturday in Gillette. Cheyenne Central won the boys and girls team titles. Paulo Melizzo of Laramie won the boys' number 1 singles championship. Haley Mathis-Breitkoff of Cheyenne Central won the number 1 girls singles championship. And that's it in sports.
I think what I would have done differently if I ever get a hold of like a big boy life-size, statue like they're holding up the hamburger and a Betty Boop. I understand why this guy wants to put it out front so people driving by can enjoy it there in Cheyenne, Wyoming. I would just have it in my living room.
The big boy is not going to fit in your living room.
Why?
It's probably 7 feet tall. From like at the restaurants?
I can get a taller ceiling.
You can get a taller
ceiling. I can get a house with a bigger ceiling.
Just stick his head right up through the ceiling and just so he just has the tray.
Can you imagine looking at your television and to watch TV at night, and on one side is Betty Boop and the other side is Big Boy?
Say you had company and people looked at you like, you're weird.
Frank, they do anyway. They listen to this show. They already know this.
I'll give you that much.
Okay. Let's Wake Up Wyoming.